This show is all about you. Not you, but you and your story. Because everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer. Everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer. Brought to you by JeffSeltzer.com.
Hello and welcome to Everybody Has a Story with Jeff Seltzer. I'm your host, Jeff Seltzer, and this is episode 72 of my own personal midlife crisis. Thank you all for joining. Really appreciate it. And let's see what we do today. Let's have some fun. A couple of topics I'll talk about, and we'll probably call it a day. I do not have any guests for this week, so I figured I'd take an opportunity to do a solo pod. Over the last few days on Instagram, I had reached out to ask for questions, see if anybody had kind of like an AMA format for me that I can kind of shoot out some answers. So I did get a number of questions that I can talk to. So looking forward to getting to those. Before that, though, had a couple of topics I did want to chat on. So first of all, I did want to shout out Kate Egan, our guest from last week, episode 71. Definitely got a lot of compliments and a lot of praise for how well that podcast went. I'll say I really enjoyed it. It was one of my favorite conversations that I had. I guess personally, it really meant a lot to me in the fact that last summer, I hired her, worked with her for 12 weeks. Got to know a little bit about her then, got to see her progress, got to see the kind of person that she is. And then a year later, got to reconnect with her again, talk to her about the last year, what that's done to her, like how it impacted her, and just like more about like her personal life, about how she's, a Division I athlete and like how that's worked out for her. So really enjoyed it. For anybody who listens, thanks for listening. Anybody who sent any comments, thank you for that as well. Anybody who hasn't listened yet, would definitely suggest checking it out. Again, episode 71. Of this podcast. Before going any further, we'll mention that the show's Instagram is at Everybody Has a Story Pod. You can email the show directly at everybodyhasastorypod@gmail.com. For all things Jeff Seltzer, you can always check me out at jeffseltzer.com. We also have everybodyhasastorypod.com, which has some cool stuff up on it as well. Lastly, the show is video format on Spotify and YouTube, audio on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, Pandora, Amazon, anywhere you can find a podcast, you can probably find this one. So definitely take a look, share it with your friends, see what you can do. Also, as a reminder, if you don't already, please follow the show on all podcast platforms. So go to Spotify, go to Apple, go to YouTube, give the show a follow, send it a review, all that kind of fun stuff. Definitely looking to see how I can help out the algorithm to get new listeners and to, share more people's stories. With that said, I did want to talk a little bit about, the excitement that happened, in New York over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, Knicks fever. So very excited that the New York Knicks won the championship. So I guess at this point, about a week ago or so, was the championship where they won in Game 5. My house, I'll say, just honestly, probably a little bit more of a bandwagon jumper. We didn't really watch much in the season, but during the playoffs, much like I'm sure 90% of viewers, got a lot more excited and started watching more games. Watched it. It was fun. Definitely enjoyed it. Loved the connection with WWE with Danhausen. I've mentioned quite a bit over the last few months about my fandom of Danhausen, how he is one of, if not my favorite wrestler in WWE. So really excited that it got him a lot more ESPN time with SportsCenter. He didn't make it to the Knicks parade, which was disappointing. But he was, I believe, at Game 3. He's done a lot of cool stuff with it, though. So really excited. Love the crossover. They even have some Knicks championship t-shirts with Danhausen on the front, which obviously I had to go out and buy one of those as well. So looking to receive that from Fanatics probably the next few weeks. So really excited. So anybody out there that's celebrating, Knicks fans, congratulations. Really excited and happy for you guys. And for Marcus, who is not happy that the Knicks won. Sorry. At least your buddy Lucas is happy about that. I did want to call out the fact that I am working on new podcast trading cards. So I put out I put out a trading card about a year and a half ago, which I'd used mostly for like live events to hand out and kind of give information on. Friend of mine, Jamie Pineda, is working or helping me partner on creating new cards. So I'm hopeful that next few weeks I can get some new cards out. If you do want a new card when they're available, let me know. I will definitely hold a few aside for people. New version is going to have probably less content on it and more. There'll be a QR code in the back, so it'll send people straight to jeffseltzer.com with all the information. Also recognizing that as I do wear reading glasses now, the coloring and the fonting of the existing cards, for me anyway, is getting tougher and tougher to read. So I think accessibility is very important in terms of when content is created. So trying to look at it and say, hey, can the average person read it? Can the average person my age or older read it? All that kind of stuff, and kind of see how it makes the most sense and most people can utilize it as best as possible. Over Memorial Day weekend, my family and I went to San Juan, Puerto Rico. It was my first time there. Beth had gone there a few times when she was younger, and my kids' first time there as well. It was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed going there. The weather was fantastic. Definitely better than it was up in Jersey. So happy that I was able to get down there for that. Really enjoyed it. Was blown away by the size of the cars. So when we got to the airport in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and rented a car, like I don't remember what brand or model the car was, but it felt tiny. Like generally for the same rate and the same whatever else like that, we'd get like a mini SUV or an SUV in Orlando or whatever else like that. It was a small car, which kind of hit me as odd initially. But then not long after I left the airport, when I recognized that a number of the roads are a little more narrow, it made more sense, and it checked in the fact that I guess smaller cars, smaller roads. I mean, the two of them probably go well together, right? If you had like a huge, huge car with small roads, that could be a challenge from a safety perspective and just overall comfort perspective while driving. So everything worked out well with the driving. One other thing that really caught my attention as well was the miles versus kilometers versus liters. So speed is in miles per hour in Puerto Rico, but distance is in kilometers. Although I was also told that distance is in time, not kilometers. So similar to like my story that I had about a year ago with Shira, and when I spoke about my trip to Canada and her being from Canada, she had said that in Canada, they don't necessarily refer to distance in kilometers as they would in Canada, but they refer to it as time. Like, oh, it's probably about 20 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever. And for the most part, it's fairly consistent in terms of how long it takes. When we took a tour of Old San Juan, we were told the same thing too, that despite the fact that it's in kilometers, people generally refer to distances in time. So that was interesting learning to me. Obviously, the overthinker that I am, I was thinking through, right, but what about traffic? How does all this kind of work? I guess people in other regions or other countries don't necessarily think that way or overthink it too much like I do. So anybody cares or is concerned, in Puerto Rico, they generally talk about distance in time. Also, what I thought was interesting as well was when I passed by the gas station. So first of all, the prices seem a lot lower than the US, not because they got a better deal, but because it's liters. And I believe a liter is roughly a quarter of a gallon. So the math kind of maths how it does. The liters was interesting. What was more interesting was I've always thought it was weird in the US that gas prices are in 9/10 of a cent. So it might be like $3.99 and 9/10, or $3.97 and 9/10. You'll see it up on the gas station, signs when you drive by the pricing and such like that. In San Juan, I assume all of Puerto Rico, but didn't do a full tour of Puerto Rico. They do it 7/10 of a penny. So it would be like a liter is like $1.63 and 7/10. I don't know if this is corporate America or the big fuel, big gas, big petroleum. Just trying to confuse us all with 7/10 versus 9/10. Like, why not just make it like round it up or round it down? It's very strange. Like, I assume there's probably some reason from years ago in terms of why these things are what they are, and why in the US it's 9/10 and in Puerto Rico it's 7/10. But I have no idea why. So if you have any idea, let me know. Or if you've been into other regions or other countries and it's like 3/10 or like whatever, like different fractions or whatever, or like a quarter, I don't know, whatever it is, let me know. I'm very curious. Like, this is just kind of intriguing to me, and I'm trying to understand why it's done. It doesn't make any sense to me, but at the same time, I mean, a lot of things don't make sense to me. So I guess that's just the way that it goes. So I have no idea. While in San Juan, my wife and I went to the Rondel Barrilito facility, I guess, building where they actually make the rum, which was really interesting to me. So last summer, Beth and I went on we went to a bar in Toronto when we were up there and watched them where they brew the beer. This year, we did the same thing at a facility where they do the rum. And this place just outside of San Juan has been doing this for like forever. Like, I think it's like 100+ years or whatever they've been making rum there for. So got the history lesson, saw where like the original owners used to live. We got to see like the barrels that they aged the rum in, which was really intriguing to me. Like, at one point during the tour, I'd asked the question because there were barrels that were like probably 30 feet up in the air, like on almost like if you're in Home Depot, like kind of like the top rafters. So I asked the question. I was like, hey, like, it's a very narrow area here. Like, what kind of machines do you guys use to take those barrels down? And the guy was like, no, there's no machines. Like, legitimately, we use like rope and pulleys, and we use that to like pull the barrels down, which is interesting to me. Just how heavy those barrels are, how high up those barrels are, and just the amount of risk that's there, right? Like, you make a little mistake, the barrel comes flying down, you just lost 20-year-old, rum or whatever else like that, which is a lot of money. So I guess they know what they're doing. I guess they've been doing it for so long that it kind of works for them. But it kind of blows me away in terms of how that works. I guess it was a really cool tour. At the end of the tour, we had a rum tasting where we tasted from 2-star up to 5-star, which is interesting to me also because as a non like alcohol connoisseur, I don't drink that much. The 2-star goes for like $30 a bottle, I think, up to the 5-star is like $1,000 a bottle. And like after tasting all of them, I don't know if the 5-star tasted that much better or different than the 2-star for me or 3-star. So I guess I'm not the person who would spend that kind of money on alcohol. But there's a market out for it. So for anybody who loves it or enjoys it, good for you. Just for me personally, I didn't necessarily taste the difference. Like I guess also because I generally mix it. Like I wouldn't take rum by itself. I go like a rum and coke, or like just a general like cocktail mixed drink of some kind. Versus there are people, a lot of people, who drink like rum straight or tequila straight or whiskey straight, stuff like that. So it's just not for me. But again, trying to get outside my comfort zone, try different things, learn different things, stuff like that. The traffic was kind of weird and interesting too. So we ended up driving from our hotel to the Rondel Barrilito facility. We initially looked for an Uber, and I think because we were going there during rush hour, I think an Uber going there was like $100, and then we eventually found out coming back was like $20. And we kind of got scared off by the cost of the Uber going there, that we ended up just driving both ways anyway. But it's interesting to me just seeing like how much surge pricing is. I remember years ago when I first started using Uber, honestly, like 2016 or 2017, I was in Disney World, and I quickly realized like Uber was a huge bargain. So going from Disney World to Universal, I think a taxi was going to cost me like $75, but an Uber was like $20. So at that point, I started using Uber a lot more on vacation, got used to it. I think over the years, Uber rates have gone up more and probably more in line with what taxi rates are. So, I mean, I guess from a convenience perspective, it works out. Getting back to Puerto Rico again for a second, I guess part of one of those things where like, it's kind of like, matching taxi rates is with surge pricing, right? In terms of looking at it and saying during rush hour, charge a lot more. During slow season, it does a lot less. It's crazy. Very, very interesting, I guess. I'd say overall, San Juan was a lot of fun. We did a tour of Old San Juan. We walked around. Very cool to see, very scenic, learned a lot about the area. The tour guide was amazing. Whole family enjoyed it a lot. So that was really cool. Really enjoyed the time there. Did get a number of questions, as I mentioned earlier. So I wanted to get through some of those before we call it a week. So first question that I got, and the person didn't want to get named, was, have you ever regretted something you said on the pod? So it's a good question. So for the most part, as I always tell people, I do this live to tape. So I'll record the podcast. I will produce it or, tag it however I have to, post it, schedule it, and it gets posted at some point onto Spotify and everywhere else. I generally don't edit. The only time I've ever edited was the 2 live podcasts that I did at the wrestling shows last year, largely because I wanted to, in post-production, record an intro so that way everyone knew what they were going to listen to. And also because in one part of the recording, there was music in the background, and YouTube informed me that Belarus would not air my podcast because of the musical licensing issue. So I cut out the audio for that. But outside of that, it's generally live to tape. So what I'll say is, when I've talked to other people, I don't. So I'm generally fairly comfortable in the conversation, generally goes back and forth. And I can also usually get a pretty good read off of my guests in terms of like what I'm saying or what they're saying. And so there's not like a huge surprise. Like for me, like I'll say something and like I don't regret it because, I'm talking to somebody. What I will say is episodes like this, so solo podcasts definitely make me a little more nervous because I say things. I've at times gone into autopilot where I'll record for like 30 minutes. And then when it's over, I'm like, what did I actually say? And then I don't really listen back to it too much until it goes live. Then I'm like, oh shoot, did I say something I shouldn't have? Now, in listening to it back, I've never said anything that I regretted. But I still always have that anxiety after it goes live. Like, ooh, what if I said this? Like my first solo podcast I did was episode 10 back in September of 2024. I remember I'd recorded it, I had scheduled it, and then I didn't listen to it for like 2 days. And like when it went live, I was like, oh, what did I say? Who did I talk about? Whatever else like that. And it was fine. Everything was good. I didn't regret it. But again, I still always have that nervousness, like what if I said something or whatever else like that? Because, in the moment, I'm not even thinking it could be even controversial. But, maybe after the fact it could be. So to answer that question, no, but I still get nervous about it. Question number 2. Will you be going to Halloween Horror Nights this year? And what's your favorite all-time house? So I've done a few episodes about my trips to Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios Orlando. So for those that don't remember, during the fall every year, Universal Studios Orlando, as well as Universal Studios Hollywood, has Halloween Horror Nights. I've gone every year since 2012, with the exception of 2020, which they didn't have Horror Nights for reasons. So yes, this year upcoming, I am still working on planning it. I've got some pretty cool stuff planned out for myself. My buddy John's coming down. Going to meet up with some friends then there probably see Mary Kate, go see Jay and Chelsea. Who knows whoever else I'll see. But yes, looking forward to it. Should be fun. This week they just announced that Stranger Things, the season 5, the season finale, will have a house there, which I'm really excited to see. They've done Stranger Things a few times before. Always a great time. I mean, it always looks great. The actors and actresses are always like spot on. It's always a lot of fun. So really looking forward to that. Then part 2 of the question was favorite all-time houses. So great question. So I think for me, favorite all-time houses, the first Stranger Things would be one of them. And the fact that it was so cool. I was watching the show at the time, and be able to live through and go through the house after watching the series. You felt like you're walking through the series. Really enjoyed that a lot. House of a Thousand Corpses, a Rob Zombie movie from like 20 plus years ago. One of my all-time favorite horror movies. Really enjoyed that, and then enjoyed the house because, again, similarly, walking through the house was like walking through the movie. The theme here pretty much is I really enjoy the movies or the houses that are licensed from real movies or TV series. The ones that are originals are usually decent, but I don't generally enjoy them as much because from a storyline perspective or background perspective, like it doesn't necessarily click or resonate as much with me. The Ghostbusters house I thought was great a number of years ago. Back in 2017, they had American Horror Stories. They also had Saw, both of which I thought were amazing. So I think a lot of the houses that I've enjoyed over the years were ones that like I went in knowing the story. Last year also, Terrifier. I thought the house was great. The movies are super gory and they're fine, but the house was just perfect, I thought. They even had like a section at the end of the house where you could potentially, it was like, quote, the wet area versus the dry area where it's supposed to kind of be like you were getting like blood all over you. It was just, some light water. So the cool fact that they had that built into it, I thought was really neat. And I did really enjoy it. So that was really cool. Next question. What are some of your favorite movies? Okay. So I made a list of some of my all-time favorite movies. And I also made a list of my favorite movie from this year so far. So first of all, I'll say favorite movies of all time. So for me, I get a lot of comfort out of watching some movies over and over again. So there's obviously, the unknown of watching a movie for the first time. Like, hey, will I like it? Will I enjoy it? Is it something I'm going to, it's going to be good? Versus the comfort of watching a movie I've seen before, understanding it, knowing I like it, right? Like similar to how I guess like on Christmas, they always play a Christmas Story on cable for 24 hours. So the movies that I'm about to talk about are movies that I probably see at least once per year. I make a list every year after I watch a movie, and like looking back the last 3 or 4 years, like all of these I've seen multiple times. So, and some of these are series versus movies, so it's kind of tough to decipher or split them up. So first of all, like the Back to the Future series is probably one of, if not my favorite movie series or movie of all time. The first Back to the Future, I think is pretty close to perfect. I love everything about it. It's just great. Music is great. All the details make sense. So there are a lot of like little things here and there that like at the time you're like, that's kind of weird, but then there's a callback at some point later on that it kind of works back to like, oh, that makes sense now, or things change or whatever else like that. So Back to the Future 1, I think, is amazing. 2 and 3, I think, are okay. But as a whole, like I generally watch that trilogy on a yearly basis. Love it. It just makes me feel happy. It makes me feel good. So really, really enjoy that. Office Space. So for those that don't know, Mike Judge, who did Beavis and Butthead, he did Idiocracy, he did Silicon Valley. He made Office Space. I think he came out in 98 or 99. That's one where I saw it probably near the end of college, and I didn't necessarily recognize at the time, but obviously, almost 30 years later, realized that like that truly is pretty close to life. Like it's very absurd. It's very over the top. It's very ridiculous. But things haven't really changed that much since then, right? Like bringing consultants, restructuring, changes, stuff like that. Like the things that he called out back in the late 90s, like are still true here in 2026, which just amazed me. Obviously some stuff's over the top, some stuff is ridiculous. But at the same time, I think the only thing that really has changed significantly since Office Space is the removal of cubicles, as most companies have gone to an open environment without cubicle walls. So it's just amazing. But really, really love the movie Office Space. The Star Wars movies, those movies I love. My wife loves. We just saw The Mandalorian in theaters a few weeks ago, which was fine. But I'd say even a fine Star Wars movie is still a lot of fun. Really great seeing the characters, seeing different things, understanding things, the callbacks to different movies, stuff like that. Like I just love the Star Wars universe, Star Wars series, stuff like that. The video games also, like I've played a lot of the Lego Star Wars games. So like that connection is just really, really cool. Really enjoy it. So really have a lot of fun with the Star Wars movies. Clerks. So the movie Clerks came out in 1994. Kevin Smith, writer director, made it. He famously spent, I think, $27,000 to make the movie. He filmed it in black and white to save costs, or because they had to film the movie at night. So this way it would kind of block out the fact that it's always at night. Whatever the reasons, it was a great movie. When it came out, I was working in retail. I was working at a Sizzle restaurant. I eventually worked at CVS and Sam Goody and various retail stores. And it's always interesting to me because like the characters in the movie were kind of like what I, as a retail employee, always wanted to react to the customers with, but obviously for reasons wasn't able to. So the movie Clerks always clicked with me. Fun movie, funny, definitely very over the top, very like from a language perspective, kind of ridiculous. Probably close to NC-17 by standards from a language perspective, but really, really great movie. I would say, 30 plus years later, still Kevin Smith's best movie by far. I enjoyed Clerks 2 and 3, but nothing was even as close to Clerks 1. That's still one of my all-time favorite movies that I try to watch all the time. The movie Saw. So Saw was a great movie, I thought. It came out 2004. It was very different for its time. And it's one of those movies that the ending really just took me to like the next level. In that the entire movie's happening, and like what happens in the end, I'm not going to spoil it in case you haven't watched it before, but if you have, you probably know what I'm talking about. Like in the last like 3 minutes when something happens and you're like, oh wow, I did not see that coming at all. And it completely changes the entire like perspective of the entire movie. Like it blew me away at the time. And like I love just rewatching it now. Like recently I rewatched it with the audio commentary with the stars and the writer and director. It was a lot of fun just hearing them talk about it, talking about how they made it. It was also a very low budget movie that did significantly better than it was supposed to or expected to. So like those types of stories really just like intrigue me in terms of movies that didn't cost much, but like it gravitated towards the consumers, the watchers, and everyone just seemed to enjoy it and like it. So there was that. That also leads me to my favorite movie I've watched so far this year for 2026, Obsession. Similar to like Clerks and similar to Saw, very low budget film, but like fantastic movie. So Obsession, in case you're not aware, I think it's still in theaters. I think it actually hits digital this week. So if you haven't seen it before and you're curious, I think the 25th it hits streaming platforms. I think you can buy it. I don't know if you can get on Netflix yet. In any event, the movie costs less than $1 million to make. I think it's brought in like over $200 million globally. Really fun movie. Loved it. Going in, I knew very little about it from the trailers. I've been trying to do a lot of that recently, kind of go into movies blind. In some situations, it's helped. Some movies it hasn't. But with Obsession, I think not knowing much going into it definitely helped. Fun movie. Definitely dark, gory, awkward, weird. But like as a horror movie fan, like I loved it. I thought it was great. I would love to see a Halloween Horror Nights house based off of it. I've heard that they're making potentially a sequel, or they're making maybe a movie in the same universe or whatever it is like that. I'd love it. Like I'd love them to continue it. I really enjoyed it. And I hope we get more movies like Obsession going forward. On the flip side, I did see the movie Back Rooms as well. That was also one that I went into fairly blind. And that's also, I think, low-ish budget, but not as low budget, and has done very, very well in the box office. But I really didn't enjoy it. It just did nothing for me. It's just, I think it's the style of movie or whatever. Like from a horror movie perspective, and I always talk to people about this too. Like, I think the type of movies that I like are the ones that are realistic, or maybe there's a couple of things that happen magically, but for the most part, it's like 90% like things that I can envision or kind of like live through. Obsession doesn't necessarily check that box. There's lots of things in Obsession that are, let's say, supernatural, but I like that regardless. Back Rooms was like largely supernatural. And it did nothing for me. Versus friend of the show, Zach, he said he loved it. It was probably one of the most scary movies he ever saw. I watched Backrooms. All it did was give me a headache. Didn't really scare me. I was just kind of like waiting for it to end. So we all process and watch movies differently. We all look for different things. Backrooms wasn't for me. Obsession was for me. But I guess we'll see what happens outside of that. One thing I'll mention also, I think when I saw Obsession, the theater was fairly empty. And even though the movies generally start like 25 minutes or a half hour after the listed time, I generally get in there early. Now, what I always find funny is before, the listed time, before they start showing trailers, at least my local AMC theater, they generally have like some local ads or local stuff. So one thing that they showed on the screen, because they're trying to sell local ads, was studies show people are in the theater before the trailers start. So get your local ad up here and you can sell it and get more eyeballs on your product. While I was sitting legitimately in an empty theater, which I think by the time the movie started, there's probably a third or a quarter full. So granted, I know N equals 1, this isn't a large sample, but I'd be curious to see these studies they're talking about where people are getting into the theaters long before the movie starts, especially since AMC started listing out, like in their app, the fact that the movie will start somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes after the listed time. So curious if they changed their studies or changed their approach, or kind of what that looks like going forward. Who knows? Next question. So John Cevallos, friend of the show, he was one of our early guests, asked the question, how are you so famous? So I'll say I'm not famous. I'm not famous at all, but he always makes jokes because like over the years, I've gone to wrestling shows and I've gotten on TV. I've gotten on the news. I've done all sorts of dumb things out there, whatever else like that. I've also generally had a fairly large, or not large, but I've had a digital footprint of sorts for years. He's always cracked up at the fact that like I just kind of make appearances. Like at a Devils game like 15 years ago during the pregame show, I found the right spot where they were interviewing people, and I was able to talk on TV about how I thought the Devils were going to win. Or back in '99 in college, I was walking down the street, and myself and a buddy of mine got interviewed by local news channel 12 about a Rage Against the Machine story. I don't know. I guess it's a case where like when I see things, I tend to try to gravitate towards the camera and try to get out there. Not because I want everyone to see me, but like I love the content. Like I have a whole folder on my phone of just like screenshots or videos of like myself on TV. It just makes me laugh. It just cracks me up to see stuff like that. So I don't know. The answer is just be aware of what's going on around you, and if you see a camera, slowly approach it and see how you can get interviewed, I guess would be the answer to that. Next question is favorite corporate America story, as I do talk a decent amount about obviously working corporate America and how things are, kind of funny or weird or little of each sometimes. I'm going to say I'm not going to answer that question yet. I think maybe that'll be a retirement question. Maybe I'll have a whole retirement podcast of things that I've seen or experienced in corporate America. I'd like to, just keep things on the up and up and not say anything too silly at this point about corporate America, because I still have to, go back to work, let's say, and keep making money. So there was that. Favorite Disney World ride. So I'll say this. I think in current of what I've done in the last few years at Disney World, Rise of Resistance at Hollywood Studios is my favorite ride. It's a Star Wars themed ride. It's really cool. It's very experiential. I think it's very ahead of its time. And I think a lot more rides going forward will be created that way, where like you're in on the story and then you do something and then you do something else. And there's like a photo op and then you do something else. Like it's really cool. Like it's not too much like cosplay, but it's enough that like you're experiencing it and you're feeling like you're on the journey and you're trying to, do things, whatever. So that I would say is my favorite that I've been on so far. Now, what I will say also is as this podcast drops, so I recorded this podcast on Friday, June 19th. This podcast will drop on Monday, June 22nd. So today I'm actually in Disney World as this podcast drops. And I'm very excited to be able to try out the new Rock and Roller Coaster with the Muppets. So there's always been, or not always, but for a while, Hollywood Studios, there's been a Aerosmith Rock and Roller Coaster ride. Now, as you guys know, I'm not big on roller coasters as I do get motion sick, but that one's pretty much been kind of my limit of what I can do. Over the last 6 months, they shut the ride down. They rethemed it from Aerosmith to the Muppets. You might also know that I'm a huge fan of the Muppets. So the idea of, going on a Muppets ride, especially after they closed down Muppet Vision 3D, really, really excites me. The fact that like you hear Muppets music, maybe Statler and Waldorf make an appearance, stuff like that. I'm very excited to try it out. So I will say that I'm excited to ride it. I'm hopeful that maybe this will become one of my new favorite rides. We'll see. But again, as I get older, maybe I will outgrow this roller coaster as well, and maybe I'll be one and done. But if nothing else, I'd like to try it out, see it, and maybe seeing the Muppets will make me happy and prevent me from throwing up. So we'll see what happens. Next question. What music are you most looking forward to? So as of right now, like most of the artists and bands that I listen to, I don't think are putting out new albums. The only one that I'm really excited for that I'm aware of is Carly Rae Jepsen has put out a number of teasers on her Instagram that she's got a new album potentially coming out, I would say later this year. As you may or may not know, I'm a huge Carly Rae Jepsen fan. I saw her on Broadway as Cinderella years ago. I took Robin to go see her a few years ago in Asbury Park. Really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. So hopeful that she does put out an album as she's teased, and I'm really excited to listen to it and to kind of check it out when it is available. Beyond that, I would say from a concert perspective. So as of right now, I'm going to see Bon Jovi next month at the Garden with my wife. Really excited for that. Haven't seen Bon Jovi in like 20 plus years. Should be a fun show. I'm going to see Benson Boone at the Prudential Center in July as well. This is my third time seeing him, largely for Allison, as Allison loves him. So should be a good time taking Allison and one of her friends. Be a nice night. Looking forward to that one. In September, the last couple of years, I've taken my daughters to go see the Weekend Survive benefit at Parental Center. 2 years ago, it was awesome. It was, who was it? It was New Kids on the Block, Justin Timberlake, Tate McRae, Khalid, a bunch of other artists. Last year, it was Ed Sheeran. Who else was it? It was Goo Goo Dolls, a few others. So it's a very, like, I don't say who's who, but a couple of like going up and a couple of going down artists. But fun. There's somebody for each of us, for everyone. So like Allison has her artist she wants to see. I have my artist that I want to see. And it's a nice time. It's a good show. It also goes to some good causes from a charity perspective. So they haven't announced this September's show yet. Generally, they announce it like late July, early August. Hopefully they will. And I'm hopeful to go to it again this year like I have the last few years. So that's always a good time. Last question. So Jeff, why do you always flex in pictures? So for those that haven't seen or aren't aware, on my personal socials, I oftentimes have pictures where I'm either with characters or whatever, but generally when I'm by myself, I'm flexing. I'm sitting like this. And people often question and ask me, like, why do I do that? So here's the thing. So as mentioned earlier, every September, I go to Halloween Horror Nights in Universal Orlando, also Disney World, by myself, usually by myself. I'll go with some friends sometimes, but oftentimes I am alone. So early on, I realized that like when I take a picture, I don't know where to put my arms. So whether I'm with a character or whether I'm just in a picture by myself, like I felt very weird with my arms to my side or my pockets or on my waist. So I decided to kind of make a joke out of it and just always flex. Now, I don't really have huge arms or whatever else like that, but I just think it's funny. It's something cool and decent. And then over the years, like my family started doing it as well too. So sometimes in family pictures, we'll all start flexing, which has eventually become referred to as the daddy pose. So that's pretty much the answer. I still do it. Even when I'm with people in pictures, sometimes we'll just do it just to kind of make a goof of it. It's fun. It's funny. It is what it is. If you guys have any more questions for me, definitely feel free to shoot notes in the Instagram or email the show or whatever. You know how to find me and such like that. Next month or so, I do have a number of guests that I'm looking forward to. And no, I don't have any guests that I'm not looking forward to, as the flip side of that joke usually goes. I have at least 2 shows that I'm looking to potentially do in person with people. So I've only done 2 shows previously where I was in the same room as the people that I was recording with. Those were the 2 live wrestling shows. So I have a couple of shows over the next, let's say, 6 weeks that I'm looking to potentially do in person as they're local to me. And I think it'll be fun. So the production may or may not be as high quality, but it'll be something different. It'll be interesting. And I mean, I guess much like Return to Office, where they try to get us to meet in person, curious to see like how the podcast quality or content changes when I'm in the room with the person as opposed to, over the computer like I generally am. So we'll see how it goes. Maybe there'll be more in the future. Maybe this will be 1 or 2 and done. We'll have to see. That's pretty much it for that. Reminder, the show's Instagram is at Everybody Has a Story Pod. You can email the show at everybodyhasastorypod@gmail.com for all things Jeff Seltzer. You can always check me out at jeffseltzer.com. Please check out everybodyhasastorypod.com. The show is available via video on Spotify and YouTube. The show is available via audio on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, Amazon, Pandora, iHeartRadio, and anywhere else you can find a podcast. With that said, hope you all have a great day. I'll be back in a couple of weeks, and take care. Bye.
Everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer. 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 Everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer.